Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and in this follow along, let's take a look at GitHub Actions. So what I want to do is go over to our organization. I'm going to go to our fund repo, and here we have a tab called Actions where we can set up some GitHub Actions. Now, I don't use GitHub Actions a whole lot. Maybe I will if I go ahead and do that GitHub Actions certification course, but we'll just have to kind of work our way through it, and it shouldn't be too hard. So there's a lot of different things that we can utilize here. I can set up Terraform, which is kind of cool. We have deployment to AWS, to Azure, to Alibaba Cloud. We have some security things that we can do here. We have continuous integration, automation, a whole host of stuff. And you can even do static compilation, which is pretty cool as well. So we're going to have to make a decision in terms of something that we want to use. I don't think it's going to be deployment because that seems like a lot of work. So I'm trying to make a decision here, what we could utilize. Build, lint, and test a Rails application. That seems pretty small or easy for me to do, but maybe we should try to use one of these things down below. Labels pull requests based on files changed. Let's go ahead and see if we can utilize that. So I hit the configure button, and it's going to bring us into this action. And I guess there's the marketplace where we can get more stuff. I didn't even realize there was a marketplace for this. Looks like we got some documentation here. So customizing when workflows run based on trigger. So here it says on push branch. So when we push to specific ones, we can trigger different stuff. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Let's take a look here and see if we can expand this and see what we're looking at. So we have name, labeler, on, pull request target, jobs, and then we have labels. So run as Ubuntu, so it'll probably start a container as an Ubuntu with permissions of contents to read, and it can write pull requests. And the step that we're going to have here, it's going to use the actions labeler version 4, and with the repo token, it's going to bring in that token so it has authorization to do so. And we know about GitHub tokens, and I think we showed this for GitHub Actions, but not 100% sure. So carefully reading here, the whole point of this is to apply labelers. And basically the way it's going to do that is through these steps. And so I'm assuming that this is kind of like a built-in step. And if we go here and just type it in, maybe we'll go find it. Yeah, and so they're talking about actions here. Hold on here. I guess it's just a repo. So we get documentation. And, oh, okay, it's called actions. All right, and so this whole repo contains actions. All right, and so it's coming from this one. And so I'm just going to go into here and take a look at what this looks like. So just zoom out for a second. And it kind of explains maybe how it works. Automatically labels new pull requests based on the paths of the files being changed on the branch. The ability to apply labels based on names of branches and things like that. The bug related to the issue. So create a .github labeler.yaml file. This will list a list of labels and config options to match and apply the label. All right. The match object allows control over the matching options. You can specify the label to be applied based on the files that have been changed and etc. like that. And sounds a little bit complicated. But at least down here, it's like showing us the flow. It's interesting that this one is showing version 4, when clearly there is a version 5. There might have been a warning up here saying that we should use, it doesn't say that we have to use version 5 or 4, or we're first to use 5. But let's see if we can figure this out. So I'm going to go ahead and go down below and just look at the workflow a little bit more here, and it looks pretty much the same. The only difference is that this one's using version 5, and it's not passing the width for the repo token. So I'm not 100% sure if we actually really need to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and go commit changes, and we'll commit that there. Okay, so now we have that here, and if we go to actions, we can see that we have labeler, and it's only going to run what's going to trigger it. Let's go take a look here. If we want to know how it triggers, we should just take a look at the code and, whoops, go back here and take a quick look. So it says pull request target. So we pull request target. What does that mean? We'll go search it here. Pull request target. So activity types: assigned, labeled. Runs your workflow when activity on a pull request in the workflows repository occurs. When activity on a pull request in the workflow activity occurs. So it's going to check on based on a lot of stuff. So that's pretty broad, but that seems fine. It looks like we could even narrow it down to very specific types. Okay, so I mean, that's how we could play with triggers. And so basically when that triggers, it's going to go ahead and then start up Ubuntu for some reason. Maybe that's what it has to use to run this code that we saw from over here. Okay, and this looks like it's JavaScript or something. And then we need that labelers file. So we need to make sense of what this is. So the base match object is defined as this: any glob to any file. Okay. The key, okay, so what does this thing do? Automatically label new pull requests based on the path of the files being changed or the branch name. Okay, well, I'd rather just do that on the branch name. So let's see if we can find that. So it says change files. Give me a moment just to try to make sense of this, and then I'll just save you the trouble of me struggling through it, okay? Okay, scrolling on down, we're getting better examples. So this is starting to make more sense. It says, add an any change label to any changes within the entire repository. Okay, add documentation label to any changes within the docs folder. So maybe what we can do is give this one a go. And we need to create a file. What's this file need to be called? .github labeler YAML. So we'll go here and I'm going to add a new file. Okay. Add a file. This will be labeler.yaml. We'll double check, make sure that is correct. I've been known to make mistakes often. And I'm going to paste that on in here and we're going to commit that change. And so now we have our labeler YAML. I'm going to go take a look here and see if the action got triggered. It did. It failed. I mean, there's nothing for it to check right now. So no event triggers defined is on. So not exactly sure what it's saying there, but that's totally fine for now. And what I need to do is I need to create a pull request. I mean, it shouldn't trigger unless we have a pull request, right? But it did just happen now. So I'm curious what would happen if I went ahead and just made any kind of change, because it shouldn't really trigger unless it's a pull request. We'll go here and go back to actions, and it ran again. So I'm really confused. Why is this running when it should only happen on a pull request target? We'll open it up again here. So no event trigger defined is on. Okay. Maybe there's something wrong with our workflow file. Let's see what they say. You can trigger all branches just by using remove the hyphen. Your workflow file seems fine. Have you checked all indentation? So, I mean, we didn't make that file, right? It was generated for us. But let's go take a look and see what we can do about that. We have label and labeler. Okay, so this was the one that we wrote. I mean, everything looks fine here. I'm going to open this up in Codespaces, or not Codespaces, we'll open this up in github.dev just to see if we can rule out any kind of formatting issues. YAML files are very sensitive to any kind of indentation or things that go wrong. And so I just want to rule that out. So looking here, this all looks fine. I know that this is an array, so we could technically bring this down on this line like this and do that. I don't know if we need this. So I'm just going to take that out because the other one didn't have it. Okay. Can expand this. Yeah, it still has this here. And I'm not sure why this little red line is here. Maybe it's just superficial and it's confused. But this seems fine. I'm going to go ahead and update this and say update action. The other question is, do I have this in the right folder? Because Yeah, it's in actions. But labeler YAML isn't supposed to be in the actions folder. So I think what's happening here is that it thinks, I think I know what happened here. If we go back to our repo, I think it thinks labeler is an action. Yeah, so I think it's just we put that in the wrong folder. So I'm going to go back and open up github.dev again. And we're just going to move that back into the correct location. Okay, so we're going to expand that. And this labeler is going to go into the GitHub folder. There we go. Going to go ahead and add this all and fix. And we will commit. And we will let that push. And I'm going to go back over to here. All right, and if we go back over to actions, this is not the repo. We'll go back over to our organization into fun repo. It might have triggered one more time, I don't know. It has not, so we are in good shape. Can we delete this run? Yep, we can. Let's just delete this up to clean up so we can see what we're doing. And what I want to do is I want to trigger that pull request to get automatically labeled. So we're going to need a label called documentation for this to work. So we're going to go here to labels and we'll make a new label. There actually already is one called documentation. I don't know if this is case sensitive, so I'm just going to change it to capital D so it just works for us. And we're going to go over here to code and I need a new branch. So I'm going to go to dev. And in here, I'm going to create myself a docs directory. So I'm going to make a new folder here. And what I'll do is I'll make a new folder. We'll call this docs. And I'll say readme.md. Readme. Okay, we'll save that. We'll go ahead and commit this. And we're in a branch, right? Yeah, we're in a branch. So commit, we're like new docs directory. And I know I spelled that wrong. It's okay. Nobody's watching here today. There's no grading going on. If I ever grade you, I'll poke you for that. But right now it doesn't matter. And I think that we made that in the dev branch. So we'll go over here. And I want to go ahead and create a new pull request. So I want to make sure that folder is there. Pull requests, new pull request. We'll drop down dev. We'll compare that over. We'll say create pull request. And the idea is that when we create this, it should label it if this worked as expected. And so what I want to do is go over to actions and see if it triggered. And it's running, so it's queued. It's going to think what to do. It has to spin up compute. So this isn't instantaneous. In progress, good, we're watching it. Label, complete, success. We'll go to our pull request. There we go, look at that. And now we have a check that passed. And we go to our checks and it shows that it passes. So, you know, before we talked about like branch rules, we could maybe just tell it that it has to pass that before it could proceed. Not a really good example for this, but we could try it. And it's just an opportunity to show off this branch protection rule stuff. So I'm just looking here carefully for where that was. It was like checks. Okay, and I'm just gonna drop that down. And still doesn't show up here. So maybe that doesn't work as expected, but I was hoping that maybe I could just choose that from there. Because it's not like an upfront check. It's like something that happens after you do that. But anyway, that's GitHub Actions in a nutshell. It is very important that we understand how those files work. So before I go, I just want to pull up a link because there was something that really explained the structure of these files really well. It was understanding GitHub Actions. Okay, so it says here, learn GitHub Actions, understanding GitHub Actions. I think it was this one. Yeah, and so this one really helps explain this workflow file. So let's go through it really quickly and make sure we understand it. So first thing is the name. So we're gonna name it, that's optional. We have run name. So the workflow runs the generated from the workflow. I guess it's gonna be like the run name we have on. So specify the trigger of this workflow. So on triggers events, jobs, groups together all the jobs that run. Then we have steps, groups together all the steps that run in the checkbats version. Notice we didn't have these before. Runs on, configures the run on the latest version of Ubuntu Linux Runner. I imagine you could change this to other things. Uses, the uses keyword specifies the step that will run here. And of course, we found out those are remote repos, so that makes sense. And that's pretty much it. So steps, jobs, on. Remember those three: on, jobs, and steps, okay? And that's pretty much it. So I'll see you in the next one, okay? Ciao.